Listeners, just to let you know, the audio quality on this is not going to be at our usual level because we had the opportunity to sit around the table and actually do this recording in person. It was a lot of fun, so I hope you'll forgive the added noisiness.
Infinite diversity.
Live long and prosper, and welcome to Infinite Diversity, a Star Trek Universe podcast here on the BQN Podcast Collective. I'm your host for today, Chrissie, and since Thad is on an away mission this week, we have a De Clerck frame in the takeover again with Jason and Nickie and Dom. Nickie, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Good. I just realized that there aren't a ton of De Clercks here.
You know, when I was writing this, I was like, it's a De Clerck family takeover, but none of us have that name anymore.
And I'm totally okay with that, but no, I'm doing good.
All right, it's a Szilagyi Virginio takeover. But anyway.
Right.
All right, Jay, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
All right, and Dom, how are you today?
I'm doing wonderful.
All right. Well, before we get into our topic for the day, I'd like to take a moment to thank our BQN Patreon patrons who make this show possible, particularly our associate producer, Carl Wonders. Listeners, you can hear your name listed as one of our associate producers for a monthly subscription of just $10 at patreon.com/BQN. And with a monthly Patreon subscription of just $5 or more, you can join our meetings of the Hive Mind, which usually happen on the second Saturday of each month. Watch your Patreon messages for details. All right, we had a big piece of news this week. Prodigy has a new home on Netflix. How you guys feeling about this?
I think it's funny that Star Trek is back on Netflix in any form because leaving Netflix was such a big deal. And I'm just glad that they recognize the value of it.
Yeah,
to begin with.
Definitely needed more than one season.
Yeah, and it needed Nickelodeon to treat it better, too. I think that was part of the problem.
I appreciate that the standard for saving shows has become flying a plane over the studio with a banner. That's the second time I've heard that now after The Expanse.
Yes. And the showrunners were in their announcements, were very appreciative of the fan base and saying that this happened because of you guys and what you were doing and all of that. So
very excited about that.
Yeah. I think it'll be good. I was a little concerned that it might end up on Disney. Not because, they wouldn't do a decent job with it, but I didn't want it to get run over with Star Wars, and I also did not want to let Disney even have the smallest bit of Trek to grab onto and pull the rest of it in.
That would be a fascinating turn of events, though.
It would be.
The evil mouse empire taking over yet another galaxy.
And I can't say that I would be opposed to a whole portion of Disney World or Disneyland being dedicated to Star Trek.
Oh, gods, no.
Yeah.
No.
I don't know. But the Las Vegas experience just needs to come back. But,
it does.
I was just so surprised. I don't know if this isn't necessarily relevant, but I was just so surprised that they created a second season and they're just like, nope, not going to show it. What the hell is that about?
You'd think the money was already into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's the tax write-off thing, and that's why when they did it and why they did it the way they did. And I can't explain it beyond that because I don't have a tax-type degree.
Are we sure Paramount isn't run by Ferengi?
No, we're not sure of that at all.
We are sure that Disney is, though.
Yes. It's the ears.
Profit.
I actually did expect it was going to be Amazon that picked it up.
Mm-hmm.
And
if anybody. Yeah.
All right, so yes, we're excited about Prodigy. Hi, Nog. Listeners, you can't see it. Usually, you might be aware that my cat is often sitting on my lap while we're recording, but this time we're at Nickie and Dom's place, and their dog Nog has joined us. You want to say hello, Nog?
He's a little quiet this time.
He was rough earlier, but not now. No, okay. Well, all right. So we are very happy that Prodigy is going to be back. What we're told is season 1 in its entirety would be available to stream later this year, and then season 2 will be coming sometime next year. They were not more specific than that. Really? So, yeah. But given that it's largely done, or it's half done, I guess that is largely, but I imagine it'll be the first half of the year. And they might have to agree with Paramount, like, when that's going to be, because they might not want to go up against when one of the other shows is running.
Yeah. Or another cartoon that Netflix is showcasing or something like that. Yeah.
Or whatever Star Wars is coming up. Although with streaming, that's not as much of an issue, which I'm glad about. But anyway, so that's great news. But we're here to discuss the current episode of Lower Decks, A Few Badgeys More. Got a resolution to a lot of artificial intelligence this week. I'm just going to go around and get what you guys' initial thoughts were. Dom, what do you think about this week's episode?
I have a question if I can start.
Sure.
That the Few Badgeys More title reference to TNG's A Fistful of Datas?
No, but A Fistful of Datas is a reference to the Western A Fistful of Dollars, and this is a reference to the Western A Few Dollars More?
Yes, which is another Clint Eastwood movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the same
Western,
vein
yeah.
of that same reference, yeah. No, I loved it. First impressions of the episode. I mean, it's Lower Decks. Nickie and I always go into it knowing we're going to enjoy it. It usually lasts probably 3 times longer because we're always pausing the episode to look at references or whose voice is that. But yeah, through and through, always enjoy those episodes, and this one definitely is no exception.
Nickie?
I really liked the episode. There were lots of, like, it felt like half references to lots of things.
Okay.
Like, they just kind of touched on it, like the tomatoes, like the description of space and time, and it was just a little bit, like, we can, surmise about what they might have been referencing or whatever, but I enjoyed it a lot, and I also just wrote down A Fistful of Badgeys ? So you and I had the exact same thought at the same time.
I really enjoyed this episode. It's a nice return of several villains, we'll say, and our Star Trek super alumni Jeffrey Combs showing back up again. Can't go wrong with an episode with him in it.
You really can. And I enjoyed the episode too. I have been a fan of Peanut Hamper. I find her annoying, but you're supposed to, so that's fine. I was not a huge fan, you may remember, of the episode where she was with the bird people, but I like where she's at now, so that's good. So we start off with Badgey taking over the Drukmani, which is beautifully done. Rutherford's implant does the work there. Different Drukmani ship, not voiced by J.G. Hertzler this time.
Okay. Yeah. I was trying to think, I know
Different
last time we saw these guys, there was something about them, and
yeah.
Makes sense.
The ship of theirs that we've interacted with previously was the guy's voiced by J.G. Hertzler.
He must be too busy doing recordings for the D&D Battles and Batless.
Nice. Yes. Good reference there. Yeah. So we'll get back into Badgey, of course, but then we come to a Binar ship that gets destroyed by, again, the ship that I'm calling the thing that looks like Slave One. It's the first time we've seen Binars since 1987, so that's kind of fun.
Has it been that long?
They've been in the
alive
background
then. Wow.
They've been in the background places, but this is the first time we've actually interacted with them, and it's the first time we've seen a Binar ship too.
And lower deckers. A Binar ship.
True. Yes. Yeah.
I appreciate that on the Binar ship, their captain's chair has 2 seats.
There's got to be 2 of them.
The details are just great with that.
And I love how there was no translation to their language.
None.
There wasn't even an attempt, to do it. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing better was if they would have done like a closed caption with ones and zeros, but then they would have had to have been
Right.
they would have had to have been very careful to make sure that that actually like meant something.
People would look that
people
up.
would have looked it up, but
Absolutely.
yeah.
We would have done it.
So that ship takes another victim, or not, as we may find out later. And then we cut to, of course, our heroes on the Cerritos, who are trying to put a grappler on their shuttle. I love that shuttle. I love how it's getting little bits and pieces added to it every time we see it. There's drawings on it, all of that. You guys like grapplers? How do you feel about grapplers?
I mean, when it was on what was it, Enterprise? It was an interesting method, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I appreciate it. I think they're funny. It's what you'd think technology would move to before tractor beams. So it makes sense. And I appreciate that they're adding that to their Delta Flyer in quotes.
Yeah, does it have have they named it?
Yes. What is it?
Or is it just the original? Is it like the Yosemite?
That sounds right. It's one of it's all of the shuttles on the Cerritos are state parks, I believe, in California.
Okay. Or is it the Sequoia?
That's what just came up. Yep,
Sequoia.
it's the Sequoia.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, the Sequoia. I think the Yosemite is another one that we've seen on theirs. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. As far as whenever I see the grapplers in Star Trek, I think about the physics that I don't necessarily understand behind it. So like you've got this thing like flying out, and that force, and it's like trying to grab onto something, and the thing that threw the grappler out, wouldn't it like get pulled? I don't know. The physics of it are mind-boggling. It's kind of like temporal mechanics.
I think of it like a whaling spear on a gun, like a gun
shoots
a whaling spear, Yeah. But it has the ability to grab onto things, like they can control the little hand.
Yeah. But still, I'm just imagining things whipping around tied together by a grappler. I don't know.
Yeah.
I appreciate once again that Enterprise is, stuff that came out of Enterprise is getting so much love and appreciation.
Yes, definitely.
Well, I was really glad actually to see that both Tendi and Boimler were not horrifically injured in the accident that they had, because you think that flying out and slamming them into the wall would do some fracturing or something.
Well, it caught Tendi's shirt and caught Boimler's ankle. Of course, he was left there. He probably didn't feel too good after a while. None of you guys. I was half expecting one of you guys to just do the lawn thing.
I love a grappler.
So that reference went right over my head. Because I was in those old scientists, right?
Yeah.
That reference went right over my head. I did not even think about Enterprise at that time, but now, I love it.
I think Chris and I have seen those old scientists probably like 10 times, if not more.
Not quite that many. A few weeks ago, maybe it was with the first episode of the season, our Paramount Plus, every time I get done with an episode of Lower Decks, tries to kick me into watching those old scientists. And
that episode specifically?
Yeah, and it's not, and I thought because it was happening with the first week of Lower Decks, and I thought that was like some sneaky marketing thoughtfulness on the part of Paramount, but everybody I've asked, and they don't have that same issue. So I think I've just watched it too many times, and it thinks I just want to watch it again.
But that would make so much sense. Like, hey, you're watching Lower Decks, how about watch this crossover episode of this show that's,
And then watch Strange New Worlds after that.
Exactly, yeah.
Of course, if they were thinking that way, we would have had a Moopsie plush to buy, so...
Oh, well...
No, so don't give up on that yet.
I'm not.
That's probably coming.
I'm not. Although it is New York Comic Con weekend, and I'm actually kind of surprised there wasn't a Moopsie plush the way they had the Murph plush last year or 2 years ago that was an exclusive.
At New York
Comic Con, yeah. But anyway, yeah, okay. So we have our grappler. I made the ridiculous joke about the reference. We'll come back to the Cerritos and Badgie on the Drukmani ship and all of the salvaged hollow emitters. Rutherford takes a different tack this time. Although I do appreciate him jumping out and being like, I was just going to come over here and die.
That's just classic Rutherford.
It is.
Willing to sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
I do like to point out, and I read this on the forum as I was watching the episode, but we rarely see away teams, I'm putting this in quotes, but Mariner and Rutherford together, and Tendi and Boimler together.
Oh,
so it was nice to see that dynamic there.
Yeah.
Dynamic duos.
They have been mixing them up, and I appreciate that. I think that's good. If we're going to maintain that core group of the four of them, there needs to be that different direction.
Right, not always the same, too.
Sometimes it reminds me of Friends. Even though it was the six of them, if the six of them were together, they were all together, but then they had, not considering the romantic relationships, but then they had the pairings off that they would do things. And then they'd switch it up and you'd be like, oh.
Love a good Joey and Phoebe episode.
Yes! They're going to have a renaissance. Yeah, so Badgie wants to destroy the Cerritos. Rutherford comes in, and the way to fix Badgie is with love. Too much of a trope?
I think to a degree it kind of plays into the classic Star Trek computer paradox, where you hit it with something that it cannot comprehend.
Mm-hmm.
And like the thing that drove Badgie was revenge and being in opposition to Rutherford. And when Rutherford's like, I should treat you like a son. Badgie's program had no idea how to handle that. And then you start to see him break into his multiple personalities.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I hadn't thought of it as a thing that was just that the program couldn't handle. I had very much anthropomorphized Badgie by that point and was just thinking of it like the trope of, the father finally appreciates the child. But yeah, it fried his program a bit too.
Because he glitches out.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how he splits between gold, silver, and bronze. It's just like, oh, nice.
Yeah. Yeah, and the silver that's the color of the badges in lower decks.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And we were saying it reminded us of, you said Cuphead, and I was thinking Mickey Mouse, old Mickey Mouse.
Same, yeah,
which is the same
art style.
Design.
Yeah.
And I like the play on Badgie and Goodgie, because that wasn't somewhere I had gone with that. And then, of course, this is an old Trek trope, like The Enemy Within. Going back to whatever it was, the third or fourth episode that ever aired, which is a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, anyway. So, but it's still good.
It also touches, to a degree, Data and Lore.
Yes.
Because they're opposite, to a degree, opposite coins.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking of Lal, too, even, like Rutherford and Badgie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right, because Badgie has emotions, which he didn't expect, as Data did not expect Lal to. Don't mess with AI. That's just that's the rule.
Don't have emotion.
Or that.
And kill it with a love virus if you need to.
Yeah. Yeah. Right, so we have Badgie. He's doing his thing. He's going to destroy the Cerritos with boops on the nose. Mm-hmm. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. Rutherford gave Badgie all of that information. What do you guys think about that? I mean, I guess for what Badgie was originally supposed to be, there's a logic to that, but
it plays a little bit to his being naive.
That
he thinks that everything has the potential of being good and not blow up in your face, even when it's he's experimenting with things. That's the idea of, we'll just keep going, keep trying.
He's inherently trusting of technology too.
Yes. And he's integrated with it to a degree because of his implant, and so
you have to be trusting of it. Yeah.
And the implant, as far as we've seen, had a positive impact on his personality and his.
Yeah.
Did it?
I mean, from our social mores, because he was kind of what's a good word? to describe him.
He was a
Rebel.
wiener.
Yeah, he was a rebel, yeah.
Yeah.
You say he was a wiener, yeah. Okay. That works too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it made me wonder about how much information he has and how much access to information he has that he maybe doesn't realize. That goes back to whatever was done to him to put the,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does Badgey know about the Omega particle?
That's a good question. It's a very good question.
No, I'm just thinking about like the different like what he may or may not have access to.
Well, I mean, if he has access to if he has access to everything in such a way that he can integrate himself into every computer via the subspace network, he probably knows everything.
Mm-hmm.
Probably. Yeah.
And the Omega particle is the koala.
It's koala poops.
There you go. Perfection left behind by a koala. So we have this. They're trying to figure out how to get Badgey to not destroy the ship, and then Badgey's going to take over everything. And then realizes that he is not fulfilled by this destruction.
Again, the paradox. In there, the idea of what do you get from this, and making it so that Badgey has to understand that he gets nothing from revenge, because it's like, if that's the only thing that's driving you, and you fulfill it, then...
Yep.
Also goes back to TOS with Muck Time. At the end of a Muck Time, when Spock tells T'Pring, wanting can be more fulfilling than having.
Beautiful.
Yeah. This is I have trouble not trying to find heavy messages, meanings, and morals in Star Trek episodes, and Lower Decks is often just like, no, don't do that. But this time I think we've got one about absolute power not being fulfilling in two, perhaps three aspects. So Badgey comes through and he ascends, as we have seen a few people do now. He meets the koala. Nickie, you had a point about how he described the universe, what he was experiencing, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it just reminded me of how the prophets, when Sisko first encountered the prophets, how they were trying to connect, and the prophets like explaining how they perceive the universe, and then Sisko talking to him about baseball, and yeah, it just reminded me of that, and at some point, Badgey says he's going to go hang out with the Q Continuum. I was very much hoping that maybe head over to the Celestial Temple for a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, he did take over DS9 for a moment. We saw that.
Yeah.
It was one of the ship's stations shown as being affected by him. It's funny about the baseball. The first thing I think of whenever I think of having to explain baseball to anybody is the way Sisko starts it out, which is, okay, so the player stands here and they try to hit the ball that's thrown at them from that person over there between these two lines. And that's always the first place to start with baseball, and it makes sense. And I really want him to record an audiobook explaining baseball. I've wanted that for how long has DS9 existed? 30-some-odd years now. But yeah, that's always the first thing that comes to mind. Those are the two foul lines, and you have to hit between them.
Yeah, I like the idea of when Badgey ascends, and he's outside his own limited experience, which was the drive for revenge, and the plotting revenge. And he goes through the process, like you were saying, Nickie, of past, present, and future, and seeing that everything is integrated, whether it's organic or it's machine. That was kind of cool because it's opening him up to the idea that there's more than what his perception was, or anyone's perception is. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
I agree with everyone. I just thought it was a beautiful scene. I mean, I've seen this in a few different shows. Futurama did it with Bender. He got completely...
Oh, that's right.
You were doing good until everyone died.
Right? And letting an AI or a machine get to that knowledge that it was, that everything is connected like that, and that there is more than just the killing or, I think, and the scene, especially here, was done really beautifully when they showed him transcending from past, present to future, and then having the universe at his fingertip.
Yeah.
And then, it was just a really, I think it was done really well.
Got the Great Bird of the Galaxy in there,
Yep.
too.
Yeah.
That was nice.
Yeah.
And I love how he says, well, I'm going to go create another universe.
Yeah.
Let's disappear.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I hope we
Yeah.
come back to that. I want to see that other universe that he's going to create. That would be awesome.
That made me think of, this is probably not relevant whatsoever, but
That's okay. We never do that on this show.
Yeah.
It's never. We never have tangents that have nothing to do with it. That's fine.
The episode of DS9 where there was a proto-universe. They picked up a proto-universe in the wormhole. It was the one where Dax, I think, is working with an initiate. And, it made me think of that. Like,
I'd love to see them retcon that into an alternate universe we've already seen. Not the mirror universe, because we've seen so much of that, but maybe some other one of the ones that Worf runs into in Parallels.
sure.
That would be awesome. What
Okay.
did you find?
I just thought another thing that was interesting.
Okay.
I was starting to think about the ascension of Badgey. He goes from yellow, evil in this case, to blue. But what was kind of cool is just before he starts to transcend, he gets 2 more sets of arms, and he becomes he becomes very similar to the Hindu god Brahma, the god of creation, and that's just before he says, "Well, I'm off to create another universe."
Oh.
So it's just that was a nice tie-in.
Yeah.
I saw that the first time I watched it, and I didn't write it down, and I'm glad you thought of that. Yeah, that was a nice little touch. They've done that. Oh, I feel like they did that with something else with the koala too. Maybe the koala had extra arms, but I don't remember. Yeah, I'm. This is totally not going to happen. But if we get our Star Trek Legacy and we see Q, because there was that little hints that we had when he showed up to talk to Jack at the end of the card, I would love to just. I don't want Badgey to be there. I don't want that interaction. But I would like him to have like a little yellow pin on him somewhere or something, like Badgey's hanging around. It's really maybe dumb, but I think that would be really funny. Just don't mention it. It's just there. So.
I do often think about how the events of Lower Decks would be represented in the live action shows.
Yes.
Like, so just as an example, just, say there is a Star Trek Legacy, and we get the Enterprise G standing for gay, the Enterprise gay.
Luxury gay space communism. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know. They encounter LaForge, Admiral LaForge, and they're like, "Man, this is pretty similar to what happened back then when this rogue AI took over subspace. Remember that? That was crazy. Yeah. And then it was, it fixed itself, but man, that was wild. But we can use this point of data that we got from it to, I don't know, do something else.
Yeah. Well, we haven't, up until last week, it was last week with the Ferengi, we haven't had anything that you could call universe altering or universe relevant.
You mean
happen
with
on
like
the Cerritos?
The Ferengi, joining the Federation.
Yeah, but now we have that. That is an actual historical relevant event within the history of the Federation, Starfleet, and Trek that is happening on Lower Decks. So we have to acknowledge that this is canon. Sorry, everybody. Lower Decks is canon.
Like that? Do people not want to?
There's been debate.
They're wrong.
They are wrong. They are wrong. At the beginning of it, I kind of. If they had never had anything happen that was relevant outside of itself, or only reference things that we already knew about, it struck me like an Office sitcom. Murphy Brown's nothing that's coming to mind, but The Office, whatever. There's lots of things like that, as if it were entertainment for the people of the era. Like this is their version of here's a Starfleet ship and here's the crazy hijinks that they go through. But now we have some established events that are relevant to everyone. So I never thought it wasn't canon, but I could see explaining it in that way.
As if it were an in-universe animated television series.
Yeah. Just
Holo novel.
in-universe holo novel, or
Yeah.
I suppose we'll find out at the end if Riker shows up and is the cook.
Yeah.
No, it is canon. It is canon. It's part of the universe. It's wonderful. But yeah, I agree with you. I would like to see them reference it in some places.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. In the same way that Enterprise is getting references now.
Mm-hmm.
Just a newfound respect for the show and what it brought to the universe.
Yeah, which was a lot. People, Enterprise suffered from being on a network that wasn't available to everyone in a time just before streaming when it could have been.
What network was that?
It was on UPN.
Wasn't Voyager also on UPN?
Voyager was the show that launched UPN. UPN started at 8 p.m. on Monday, whatever the date was, with the premiere of Voyager.
What? Yeah. Was the first episode of Voyager?
The first thing aired by UPN was Caretaker.
What?
Yeah, it was a big deal. It was a huge
and then
thing.
it went. Not every cable provider carried it, so it's like it launched and it was there for a season. And then, if Charter or Spectrum, whatever your internet service is now, or cable provider is, if they didn't have the contract for it, they just dropped it.
And like for us around here, it is very, very local to the Michigan area for people, but Channel 50 from Detroit was a Fox station, and then we had Channel 66 up in the Saginaw area that was a Fox station. So we never got to see Channel 50 because the cable had to take it out because it was interfering with Channel 66.
Wow.
So the only time we ever saw Channel 50 was Tigers games, because that was the only place they would play, period, then. And for some reason that wasn't lifted properly when 50 became UPN. But, Voyager was syndicated for a bit too, because I remember it ended up in the slot where TNG had been the year previously on Channel 66, actually. But I couldn't keep up with it. There were times when we just didn't have it around us, and it wasn't anywhere close enough to pick up with an analog signal.
Couldn't set the VCR up to reliably.
So just to let you know, Chrissy and I both existed before the days of the internet, before the days of streaming, back in the dark days. When you actually had to, if you didn't have a VCR and you missed what was on, you really hoped that at some point it was going to repeat.
Summer reruns.
Yep.
And you had to get a TV guide.
Yes.
To figure out when it was going to repeat.
Which was a physical human that guided you through.
Sometimes.
Think of it like Badgey, but in paper form, and it would tell you what you needed to do.
And then sometimes the TV guide would have multiple covers for a special event, like they did actually for the beginning of Voyager and the end of TNG, and then the cashier that was the Trekkie at the IGA near our house would save one of each of them for us for when we came in.
I remember he was very excited about the Elvis cover. At some point there were Elvis covers.
Oh,
I don't know why.
I don't remember.
Big Elvis fan. That's all I can remember about him.
I don't remember that.
Shout out to you, sir, if you're listening.
Yeah. The guy who was a cashier at the IGA in Saginaw in the early 90s. Yeah. We say that sometimes, and I've never had anybody actually reach out, and I wonder, someday we will say that, and people will be like, oh yeah, that was me. Someday. When BQN is the biggest Trek network there is. Yeah, so all of that fun and more. Okay, so we had, I have to bring this in, and this might just be my romantic heart here, but do we see touches of Tenderford here? A little more than we have before, after what happened last week. He got very concerned very quickly, I think more than he normally would, when she got attacked by the grappler.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to stop immediately, and she encouraged him to not stop. And then at the end, when Mariner is telling him that science is messy and to deal with it, he's like, oh yeah, Tendi loves it when I stick with things. Tendi's right.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm not opposed to Tenderford. I do like the idea of maintaining a platonic, non-romantic relationship. Because there's not enough examples of that, I think.
Period.
But we do have that in Mariner and Boimler. There will never be a Mariner-Boimler romance that I can see.
There's definitely more intimacy, it feels, with Tendi and Rutherford, though. Especially with those compliments, like, I love when blank, or at the end of the episode, I think it was 2 episodes ago when they were fake married.
That was last week, yeah.
Last week. Yeah. And they ended the episode
they were in the Jeffries
tube. The Jeffries tube, like, on top of each other, on top of their legs. But we're supposed to take that as, right? I mean, so, I don't know. I don't mind it. I don't mind them at all. I mean, it always felt like they would always be together. But I do appreciate the platonic relationship, too. And it's almost... For the fans, it's kind of like, ooh, when we see them interact like that.
Yeah.
So,
anything else about Badgie story?
Oh, I guess like the grappler. I mean, I know that was just that whole first part was like an example of how Rutherford reacts, not just to
framing.
Reacts to something that he created, possibly harming someone else. So, whatever that's right.
Yeah, I hadn't. There's foreshadowing there that I didn't catch. This is what happens when the writing major is here to discuss these things.
Oh, good.
Well, no, I'm not saying that is a bad thing.
No, I know.
All right. So the other, I don't know which one's the A and the B story, but the other story is Peanut Hamper and Agamus, and we have Tendi and Boimler going back to Earth, which must be somewhere nearby Binar space because they go in a shuttle, but fine. I looked, I couldn't find it in the star charts. It's not. If you try to, just Googling. I don't have my copy of Larry Nemechek's star charts here, but just Googling it just tells you it's in this system and it's in this system, and there's no maps.
With the magic of animation, they were able to get there.
Exactly.
In no time.
Magic of television.
I just wish they could just give each ship just a runabout, because then we don't have to. That's for just long term
needed.
We gotta go over here to do this thing.
Whatever. Yeah. But I mean, the shuttles are warp capable, so it's not like that big of a deal.
I also just love runabouts.
Runabouts are awesome. Yeah. Okay, so Peanut Hamper and Agamus are at the Daystrom Institute, and apparently part of correcting problems in AI is having them gardening?
I think that's to perhaps make the AI aware of the organic process of living.
Gain respect for the...
okay.
Yeah.
And Agamus says himself, who knew that creating life was so easy as annihilating it.
Yes.
Which actually goes back to the thing at the end where Badgie's Brahma, because it's the god of destruction and creation.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to be both.
Yeah.
Like the Eddie Izzard joke. So
And
good connection.
I think too that you're seeing like 2 different versions of AI. Like Peanut Hamper, the Exocons were designed to help people, and they interacted with people. And so maybe that was kind of put into her programming that, organics, while they might not be equal, in air quotes, to AI, there's still some sort of need for organic life for them.
Okay.
Where with Agamus, we don't know who really designed him.
Yeah, we don't know where he came from.
But his whole thing is domination. And I think that's the kind of the classic... if we say James Cameron Terminator view, that once AI becomes self-aware and realizes that humans or organic beings are a threat to it, instead of trying to coexist, it's annihilating.
I think that's a good point about the exocomp specifically, because the first one that we see does sacrifice itself for the humans. I can't remember the name of the station
that we revisit in this episode.
Yes.
And we were talking too when we were rewatching it about the tomatoes.
Oh yeah.
And you referenced DS9, and I referenced Picard, and I think that's interesting.
Yeah. Agamus talks about how easy it is to grow, or to create life. I can't remember the specific quote.
It's as easy to create life as it is to destroy it.
Yeah, and I mean, there was the other time we heard about growing tomatoes that I can remember was from DS9 when Eddington was was verbally sparring with Sisko about not defending the Federation colonies in the demilitarized zone, and how hard it was to grow tomatoes. They need just the right amount of sunlight, just the right amount of water. Which I don't know if anybody here has grown tomatoes, but tomatoes are not too difficult to grow. They're not too difficult. I mean, if you're regularly watering your garden, you can probably grow them, and you get sunlight. You can probably grow them. But yeah, that's the connection that I made. And then in Picard.
Yeah, in Picard, there's that scene with Troy and Soji, and how Soji had never had real food before. She'd only had replicated food, which connects to Discovery too, and the apple and all of that. But yeah, so tomatoes are a through line, and whether or not they're easy or difficult to grow. I wonder if we've ever seen tomatoes in the hydroponics bay on Voyager. If there wasn't, that would be unfortunate.
I remember seeing them. I remember seeing them burned to a crisp.
There's a lot of stuff in that. Yeah, that one episode. Okay. Yes, I did think that was interesting because we see when we see like the New Zealand colony, it's all like getting back to nature to rehabilitate people. We see with Tom Paris and all that. So interesting. Tendi loves sand. We see Tendi playing in the sand after Agamus kidnaps them. I love that.
And they're just kind of playing along with Agamus. I think this it's a good example. That mission specifically is a good example of their growth as officers. That at any point in time they could have just like broken free of the binding. But they were just kind of playing along because they subjugated an entire planet.
Yeah, that they probably should have played along with.
But Boimler does make the point of saying it's not like it's something Starfleet couldn't fix in half a day.
Exactly.
In an hour. He says an hour because, of course, that's the episode, right?
So, like, they're just kind of learning to be less reactionary, I think. And that's a big step for Boimler, in my opinion.
Yes.
Or shows that he's always been, that intelligent or wise, It's just, he's now really filling his boots in that regard, I think.
Well, he did see that with Agamus before.
Right. So he was aware of it.
And I expected Tendi to have pocket sand. I expected that to be relevant at some point, because she said she was taking some with her. But
we'll probably see it later on.
I'm sure.
Does she have her own room now?
We haven't seen it, but she should.
Okay, all right. Yeah. So what if the first time we see her room, it's just full of sand?
Oh, I would love that. Or like one corner of it, maybe.
Just a sandbox.
Yes.
Sandbox. That'd be great.
With the castle. Oh, yes. Okay, like let's have that happen. If anybody working on Lower Decks is listening, and if that's happening, we'd really like to hear from you so that we can be involved or whatever. So Agamus, they go to Ecuador and they're waiting on the beach. But they had this plan, it's so wonderfully ridiculous. They were going to go and they were going to take the shuttle and they were going to go subjugate worlds, as if they wouldn't have been stopped and thrown back in prison or whatever. I mean, I guess that's always the possibility.
And Agamus really does need organics because he cannot hover, he cannot, he's having Boimler pick him up constantly, and then when he finally gets frustrated, he just falls off the chair, face plants.
I think the next time we see him, because he went back to prison.
He did, but we could see him
getting an
rehabilitated.
exocomplex. allow him to float.
Oh,
That's what I'm imagining.
Because
Yes!
I think they did take away his drones because he said that they thought it was for gardening, but
You can use them for gardening. I mean, no one's worth that. But yeah, yes, I think if we see them again, Peanut Hamper shall have built him a set of exocomp legs with the little thrusters.
Yes.
Oh my god, yes. I was surprised he didn't have his drones carrying him around.
Well, maybe that was part of the deal.
Yeah.
Like,
of course,
they can water, but they can't carry anything.
That makes
can't carry anything else.
That makes a lot of sense.
And I think it was kind of cool with Agamus that he got bored. That he got, he's like, I already conquered a planet. I did this. And I think, to a degree, he just needed, when he was talking with Peanut Hamper, it was another individual that he thought was his equal. And so they were playing off each other, and the only thing initially they thought they had in common was that they wanted to dominate everything. And it just didn't work.
Yeah.
Because Peanut Hamper tried that with the bird people, and it blew up in her face, so to speak. So, because she says, I'm not good at the domination stuff.
Oh, also of note, the tool belts on the exocomps as they're walking down the hallway in the space station. As we all know, exocomps can just fabricate whatever tool they need. Although that doesn't apparently stop them from having a tool belt with other cleaning supplies.
Yes,
Just
there
in
was a
case.
spray bottle,
Yeah.
and oh god,
And
that was
Agamus,
beautiful.
again, Agamus complaining, it's like, hey, I wouldn't go through and do menial labor.
And that makes me think of I can't help but think of Voyager.
Yes,
With the holograms.
the Mark I EMHs ended up being dilithium miners or something like
Something
that.
like that.
Yeah, and that also takes us to the androids at the beginning of the card. Yeah. Which I had not made that connection. So
It all boils down to this, folks. Treat your AI well. Because if you don't, it's going to come back to bite you.
Say thank you to your Alexa every once in a while.
Exactly.
yeah, so be like Sonia Gomez in Q who says to the replicator thank you after it produces the hot chocolate for her that she's going to spill on the captain, but you don't have to worry about that. And remember, Geordi says, people don't usually say thank you to the replicators. And her response is, it doesn't take much to be nice, or something to that effect. And I think that's the example we should go with.
It reminds me of the episode of the last season of X-Files where Scully and Mulder go to the fully robotic
The sushi bar.
Yeah. And he doesn't give them the tip, and then the AI infiltrates everything in their houses until they give the tip. And
Tipping is out of control these days.
That was a crazy episode. That last season was crazy.
Did Geordi ever thank Data?
You know what? He did at the very end of the card.
Okay.
In the context of Data, in the context of their relationship.
Okay.
I'm sure if Data handed him a spanner or something, he said thank you. Because that's what people do. But that's something I'm gonna go back and look at. If they change that after Q Who, if they made a point of that after Q Who, I'm gonna give them all a lot more credit than they have. Yeah. Oh, right, and the wireless upgrade. I didn't know if it was meant to be or not, but there has been that, ever since we had wireless here on planet Earth, there has been that joke about how Data has to be plugged into things. And he does not have a wireless upgrade, so I didn't know if that was meant to reference that, but it made me think of it.
or that could have been a failsafe that's soon put in after lore. I mean, lore not having a wireless update, a wireless system either, no lore tooth. But the idea is, to keep the colonists safe, or anyone that Data interacts with safe, that he actually has to physically or verbally interact versus just having it be.
Or maybe it'd freak people out if he could just
It's already scary enough.
By thinking about
it. I have to use buttons just like you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because it's already scary how much they know automatically. And so to make them more human.
That's as good of a retcon as I've heard. I like it. We'll take it.
He's analog.
So he's analog.
We need danger.
We do know that there is some, for lack of a better term, wireless connectivity, because Soong can recall all of his androids as needed, so.
True. We just watched that episode the other night. Takes over the Enterprise.
Oh, I feel
Brothers.
Yeah. That's it.
It's a good one. Dom, you've been quiet. Anything you want to say about Peanut Hamper and Agnes and all of that?
I like their interactions. I think they're cute.
That is a good word, cute.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like, okay, so in every Star Trek episode, we get the A story, the B story, right?
Mm-hmm.
This feels more like the B story with Agnes and Peanut Hamper. I like the resolution of it, where she finds, she goes back to her family, her father, and I think the line of Agnes being imprisoned again, and then being next to what's that other robot's name?
Lord
Tyrannicus.
Tyrannicus or something.
Tyrannicus, yes.
Yeah, where he's like, he sees that Agnes is almost changing. He's like, "Can you help me with that?" And he goes, "I'll try." And that's a step in the right direction. And I really enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm. I also, it just occurred to me, because remember we hear about Peanut Hamper only joined Starfleet to piss off her father.
Yes.
And now she's back, doing whatever with her father. So that's kind of, there's a nice bit of resolution there as well, I think. So then Agnes actually does have intel about what was going on with this ship that looks like Slave One that's destroying things. Apparently it's not destroying things. I'm a little bit, we need to find out more about this, and we're going to, of course, or I hope we are anyway. Because there's wreckage.
Is that replicated wreckage?
Yeah.
Is there something that?
Ooh, that's an idea.
I mean, they are finding wreckage. There are.
Is it a way to disguise?
I think so.
Anyway, it's just something curious that we may have seen in the past that might boil up in the future.
To make it look like they were destroyed when they were actually stolen.
So no one looks for them.
Right. No, there were
Sounds
some...
very Section 31.
There were some
Sounds
Romulan...
very unification. You started to say Romulans. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say there was some Romulan lower deckers that we saw on a Romulan ship that got... Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we also saw one where they stole a Genesis device. We know that
they have a Genesis device.
A mini Genesis device.
Yeah, so when I saw okay, now that brings something else to mind. So Romulan ships are powered by little singularities, right? So you destroy a Romulan ship, and that sucker's gonna blow, right?
Yeah.
You destroy a Genesis device, sucker's gonna blow, right?
And combining a singularity with a Genesis device probably would wipe out a quadrant. Yeah.
Well, yeah. But the Genesis device was on the Ferengi ship. But still.
Oh, true, yeah.
It is curious that, there's just wreckage. But you think that they would, typically, when they see wreckage in Star Trek, they're like, all right, scan for any life signs or evidence, or something like that.
Yeah. Which I'm sure they did.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Think about Tin Man, or not Tin Man, excuse me. Think about the Mouse Toys, where Kivas Fajo puts exactly the right proportions of everything to make it appear as though Data has been destroyed with the shuttle. So,
yeah, I guess. Okay. Yeah, but you mentioned it looks like Slave One. Now, according to Disney, Boba Fett ship?
Yes.
Boba Fett ship.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That was always Boba Fett ship, I thought.
Mm-mm. Well, it was, but they renamed it. For, I believe, politically correct reasons.
Well, I can't blame them there.
Yeah.
Particular case.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I always thought it kind of looked like a jock. Like a cup.
Oh, a jockster. Yeah, no, I could see that.
Before this episode, I definitely thought that those three were behind that ship. That I thought Agnes, Peanut Hamper, and Badgey, or at the very least, Badgey,
one of them,
was involved in that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But now I have no clue who it could be.
Yeah, and even the beginning of it kind of lends toward that, because the Droop, he takes over the Droop Money captain, and it's not until he's looking at the wreckage of the Binar ship, when he says, "Oh, looks like somebody destroyed a Binar ship," that you go, "Oh, I thought you were doing that."
Yep.
You know.
Yeah.
So that's a whole other thing. I don't know. I am out of ideas for that. I think Thad was saying he thinks it's William Bulwer in Section 31.
Section 31. I just said that.
You did. Yeah. I didn't mean to ignore
the
it when you did,
replication.
but
Yeah. No, of course it's fine.
I just hope it's not the Packleds. What if the Packleds got a hold of a Section 31 ship and they were just trying to collect things to make themselves better, and they needed a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and all of a sudden the Packleds had a Genesis device.
I'll say the Packled planet was destroyed.
Oh,
that's a
God.
point. God, I hope this isn't the Packleds. I don't want to.
No, I think the Packleds are done. Yeah, I think they're over the.
Yeah, I hope.
They're just trying to collect the biggest hats.
Yeah.
No, I remember.
Or
we look for things that make us move.
Badgey is extra dimensional now, and extra Templar. Extra temporal? Not Templar.
Templar.
He's extra Templar. He's hanging out in Jerusalem. He's got all the money.
Getting ready for a crusade.
Right. Maybe it is still Badgey.
Maybe.
It could be an alternate Badgey. Or it could be a future Badgey, so that even he did not know what was going on. I don't think they're going to do that, but it could happen.
I so appreciate that they have done the episodic, I don't know what the term is, but serializing it, but also making it episodic.
Yeah, me too. Okay.
So appreciate that.
Because you can pick up anywhere and enjoy it. And I do wonder if we're going to see something akin to Beeger, because it did remind me of how Beeger was sucking everything up. Probably not, but maybe. Yeah. So then I mentioned again, we've got that theme of absolute power not being fulfilling. Anything else you want to say about Few Badgeys More?
I don't have anything else.
All right. So listeners, we're all sitting around a table. That's why this sounds differently, and so we're communicating non-verbally because we're sitting across a table. You look at each other. You want to say anything? You want to say anything? No. All right. Well, excellent. I think we've got 3 more episodes of the season. Wait. Yeah, 3 more episodes of the season. This was episode 7. So, yeah. Hopefully we won't have another cliffhanger. Although cliffhangers do encourage renewals.
They do.
Is the show really at risk?
I don't think it's any more at risk than anything else. But after what happened with Prodigy, Paramount Plus exists on Trek fans subscribing to it.
You think?
I have to believe.
Not Frasier fans?
No, it's not. Not Yellowstone fans either, no. And Blue Bloods fans. Yeah,
that's just Papa.
Yeah, that's just Papa, yeah. And it's our subscription, so it's not even him paying for it. He doesn't have a separate one. I mean, that seemed a really stupid thing for them to do. But I also think if they were going to do that, Prodigy was the one to do that with, because it was the least watched, it was the least well known, it was geared at a group that has no power on those things, children, you know, and so that if they were going to get rid of something, that makes sense. You know, if they had canceled Lower Decks, I think the outcry would have been larger than it was for Prodigy, and the outcry for Prodigy was pretty loud.
It was significant, yeah,
much more than I think they expected. So that Mike McMahon made that comment that was going around the internet a couple of weeks ago, but apparently there was more context to it, with just like, hey, 5 seasons for a streaming show isn't a bad thing, and if that's how it is, then that's how it is. And then it was taken out of context, I think.
Oh,
or
okay.
Maybe not completely out of context, but it wasn't given sufficient context.
And then like a site that's seeking clicks is just like Mike, what's his name? Mike McMahon suggests Lower Decks could be canceled. And then people click on it, and then they get ad revenue, and then there's new rumors and all sorts of stuff like that. Okay.
I mean, technically speaking, any of it could be canceled at any time, but They're not. And
We live in fear of that.
I know. I want Lower Decks to be the Simpsons of Trek. I want it to go on forever.
That would be wonderful.
There's no reason it can't.
Because there's
as long
just,
as everybody involved is still interested.
there's so much content to work with,
Mhm.
and they're not afraid to dig deep.
Mm-mm.
So, I do. I hope it continues anyways.
Yeah. And I don't think this is going to be the last season. I hope I'm not jinxing it by saying that. But then we're going to have quite a hiatus.
Yep.
Because
Next
the
year's gonna
writers
be
are
rough.
back.
Yeah, but they got a better contract, so it's worth it.
Oh no, totally.
Yeah.
But the actors aren't back yet, so we have.
Does that include voice actors?
It never included voice actors
They're probably
for
under different contracts.
cartoons because they have their own contract.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, we could have a year of animated Trek,
I'd be okay with that.
which would be all right. I would not be unhappy with that. Nog, would you like to give your comments now?
He's wagging his tail.
All right. So, if people want to continue the conversation with you and talk Trek, Nickie, where can people find you online?
Instagram, Nickie Zebra, NICKIEZEBRA. If you ask to follow me, I'll probably accept it. But yeah, otherwise it's private. So
Yeah, in the BQN Collective on Facebook. You're over there if you want to talk to. So, yeah.
sure, yes, but tag me because I don't necessarily keep my eyes on it.
All right, Dom. If people want to talk to you about Trek, where can they find you online?
I'm also on Instagram at Dom_Virginio, and probably playing Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
All right, Jay. Well, people know some of this already if they listen to History with Zloggies, but where can people find you if they want to talk Trek or history or whatever?
Okay, you can find me on X, the site formerly known as Twitter, at Jason Dark Elf. Yes, it's still Twitter as far as I'm concerned. I'm old school. I'm never giving any ground to renaming that.
When a person asks you to respect their name change, you should always do that. But when Elon Musk buys a site and then changes its name, you should not.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can also find me on Blue Sky at Jason Dark Elf. And I'll probably be watching Star Wars or playing Project Zomboid.
Yeah. Yeah, if you play Project Zomboid, reach out to him. If you do Warhammer, reach out to him.
Yes.
All sorts of fun stuff. And of course, in addition to here on Infinite Diversity, you can find me on History with the Zloggies here in the BQN. That's that twice weekly short history podcast I do with Jay sitting here. I'm also happy to chat about our shows in the BQN Collective on Facebook, and I'm on Twitter and Blue Sky at the Goddess Livia. That's TheGoddessLivia, where you can see my opinions about Star Trek history and leftist politics. And I'm going to take this moment actually to plug. Jay did a very thorough explanation of why things are the way they are in Israel, Palestine, and that area of the world for History with the Zloggies last week. So if you are looking for a good background to that, the history of it, definitely check that out. Our episodes have often gone into the 2-hour mark, so the fact that this one's 2 hours and 45 minutes should not be daunting to any of you listeners at all. But it is broken up. If you want to just hear the more modern part, it's about half of that. So definitely go look that up on History with the Zloggies.
Don't forget to check out all the great shows on the BQN podcasts. Here's Amy Nelson to tell you all about them.
What shows are on BQN, you ask? Well, here's a rundown of some podcasts you might be interested in. All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast covering all of Trek, hosted by Amy, Mark, Christos, and Kelvin. Bargain Bin Gamer, a YouTube show hosted by Davey, a self-proclaimed gamer who specializes in reviewing and showcasing affordable video games. If you're lost in the Delta Quadrant, check out The Captain's Couch, a Star Trek Voyager podcast hosted by Jeremiah sitting on Janeway's Ready Room couch. Cinema Z, a film discussion and review podcast showcasing films you probably missed but should definitely check out, hosted by Mark, Matt, and Laz. Beam Aboard the Galaxy Class, a Star Trek Next Generation podcast covering all of TNG, hosted by Amy, Joe, Rhea, and Kevin. History with the Zloggies, a snippet of historical events from around the world, hosted by Chrissie and Jason. For the newest Trek coverage, check out Infinite Diversity, hosted by Chrissie and Thad. Test your Trek knowledge with Treksperts Quiz, a Star Trek quiz show hosted and written by Davey. Union Federation, covering all things Star Trek and the Orville, which we all know is really a Star Trek show, hosted by Kyle, Kevin, Amy, and Haley. Spill the Tea with What's the Tea, Bev, a Trek current events and fan interview show hosted by Christos. And for our Patreon members, we have The Hive Mind, BQN's monthly roundtable discussion with hosts and listeners. It's Green, a cornucopia of topics hosted by Mark. And Amy's Math Moments, a quick look at math moments in Star Trek, hosted by Amy. We know you have a choice of podcasts to choose from, and we thank you for listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Infinite Diversity. Thank you to Zach Tripp for the wonderful theme music and Mark White for the awesome short.
Please subscribe in your favorite podcast player, and don't forget to rate and review us there as well. When you next hear from us, we'll be talking about the next episode of Lower Decks, entitled Caves. Until then, we bid you peace and long life.